Who took to the first game in the preseason like it was bullshit? Bullshit. The Patriots, they are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook. Now, if after week one you want to crown them, then crown their ass. But they are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook. Folks, obviously, last time Pat and I spoke was after the week one victory against Cincinnati. Since then, an overtime loss, a Thursday night shellacking, and the opposite side of a get right game has the Patriots from 1-0 to 1-3. And I don't want to say I'm surprised. It's just the fact that after it started, we had that like sense of optimism, and even after Seattle. But then ever since then, it's just been a slight fall from grace.
It's and it hasn't been a slight fall from grace. It's been a precipitous fall from grace. This is just, they are, and you're totally right, right? They are exactly who we thought they were, right? We
Yeah.
talked about in the offseason about how this team wasn't good. They had a bottom 5 roster as far as talent across the board. And, that wasn't going to get fixed in one off season. They come out, they play really well against Cincinnati. And I don't even know if they play really well is accurate, but defensively, they played really well. And offensively, they were able to move the ball on the ground, and control the clock. And Cincinnati made enough mistakes. They turned them over a few times and they were able to get out of there with a win. And so, that's great. But like, I think we were a little bit, overzealous. Now, I will say, you play a Seattle team that looks like it's a pretty good team, right?
Yeah.
Now they lost to Detroit on Monday night, obviously, but like they're a pretty good football team. That team, they have an excellent defense, and you hung with that team. You lost in overtime, but you hung with that team and almost beat them. So, I think that there were some signs of optimism. Then you
Yeah.
get the short week against the Jets, which was just tough draw for the Patriots. And then you play San Fran, and you're nowhere near San Fran. Mike Reese always does his on Monday morning, kind of releases it, or Tuesday, maybe it is, or Monday afternoon, whatever it is, releases his kind of, extra points almost, right? Almost in like his notes app or whatever, just kind of like, these are the extra points that I have. And the first one was that talent-wise, San Fran is just so much better than the Patriots, and it illustrates how far away the Patriots are from being that team. And they're just miles, oceans away from being that team right now. And it's okay. It's all right that they're there, but you start looking at these drafts from years ago, and you start to say, okay, well, were they any good? We thought the 2021 draft was going to be a really good one. How good's Ramondre? Right? Barmore's obviously hurt right now. So, like, that's, what are you going to do with that? Right?
Yeah.
Kyle Duggar is really the only guy I got from 2020. Of course, Mike Onwenu, but he's looked awful this year. And then it's like 2021, you have Barmore, and I guess Ramondre. We'll count Ramondre.
Yeah.
And, I think Anthony Jennings counts. He's a really good run defender. I like that. But then you start going down the list. Okay, 2022, what do you got? Strange stinks. Well, hurt, I guess. Taekwon stinks. Shouldn't be on the field at this point, right? So, like, then you
Marcus.
start, right? Marcus Jones, probably the best player of the 2022 draft, right? Which is crazy to think. And I like Marcus a lot, like, obviously, as people can see. Like, there he is right there, right? Like, I love him. But, like, he's a third corner, and he's really a slot corner, and he's limited size. I mean, you saw the pass to Juwan Jennings. It was a perfect throw. It was great coverage, but that was a perfect throw, right? And then you look at 2023 and you say, yeah, okay, we got Christian Gonzalez, and I like the upside that Keon White has, but, like, Marte Mapu hasn't been healthy all year, didn't really do anything last year. Like, and then you start looking down the line, you're like, that's it, right? And now what do we have this year, right? We thought promising group of rookies, but have we gotten anything out of those guys yet? Not really, right? So I think Jalen Polk's looked all right, but, like, but it's, so that's the thing. And now you're depleted. You haven't really done a ton to fill in, and so it's like you're basically back at square one, which is not a good place to be.
No, it's not, because you have to look at all these teams where, like, I like to look at Kansas City because, look, obviously we know what Kansas City has. We know what they're going through right now for what you want to say about them being 4-0, but they have a lot of hidden gems that they have developed to the draft.
Yeah.
Justin Reed in the secondary, Creed Humphrey at center. I know Bolton was your draft crush in 21. I know Leo Chanel as well was someone else who was very
Mhm.
kind of flew under the radar. I believe it was in the 22 draft. And even a guy that I noticed from, I no longer they do the podcast, but I always remember it as Tailgate. got me on George Karlaftis in that draft. So there's just those like little guys there that you see that, hey, they're homegrown talent that are contributing. Because I know everyone likes to look at, hey, obviously 15 and 87 are homegrown, so is 95. And look at this too, 95, Chris Jones, homegrown. Like I said with Creed Humphrey, homegrown. Pacheco, homegrown. Rice and Worthy, homegrown. There's so much homegrown talent on the team that they really, when they want to bring in a luxury free agent, it's a luxury. I want to look. The way I look at the schedule too was obviously, look, Seattle, you can still say if it could have gone either way, the whole defensive pass interference on Jonathan Jones in overtime. But that overtime, that call reminded me so much of the 21 game against Dallas, where they didn't go for it on fourth down, and right away I'm like, okay, they just lost that game. You know, the one where they punted at midfield. I'm like,
oh yeah,
they lost that game right there. That one, the CD Lee Corso wave.
100%. Yeah. And that's, by the way, very, very similar situation in 2022 in Green Bay. Now, with Bailey Zappi, but still, you don't go for it on fourth down in overtime, and you end up losing the game in overtime.
Yeah, but then they won a week later, and I met you for the first time in person. So little wins. But no, like the way I want to say now, like I was stewing on the couch that's right in front of me, watching last Thursday night. But at the same time, too, I was just like, I feel like the Jets' loss is still the one that stings the most because of what they just did this past Sunday. Where I like for the Jets, I'm still waiting for them to play an elite team. But with this past Sunday, look, only Fred Warner's a little linebacker that can have that pick six happen with that catch. The George Kittle touchdown, that George Kittle touchdown reminded me so much of opposite side of the ball, but the Micah Hyde interception in the wild card game where all you can do is just go.
Right.
Damn.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I like that. Yeah.
A good football player made a really good football play. Like George Kittle, you had three guys, average corners, just going at him. And then the only other thing I'll say about Sunday too is you put a depth waiver wire left tackle up against Nick Bosa, you're going to have a bad time. So this team is what it's expected it to be. Look, we'll get into Drake Maye in a little bit, but it's for now. They are what we thought they were. I see people doing the whole tankathon stuff. I know I've even tweeted out some stuff about Kelvin Banks or Will Campbell, but still, we'll still see what happens because this coming Sunday is a new day. So we'll see where we go, but it's the fact that it's injury after injury after injury just keeps piling up on this team to where, Sunday, oh, hey, Andrews is gone, which I'll still say this. Nick Leverett was fine in his replacement. There was no problems there. It wasn't like James Ferentz. James Ferentz just could not play center to save his life. But Leverett was fine. Owenu got killed in the Jets game, but he was fine against the Niners. And then it was just, you're basically playing depth. You're playing little giants against the Cowboys pretty much for the rest of the time where it's just, there's the reason why San Francisco is this ultimate team. And I'm going to get a moment to flex because they'll be probably in the final 8, if not final 4, like the Patriots were so long ago. My new AFC t-shirt. I think it was 2002 or 2004. I got it at a thrift shop a couple weeks ago.
I was going to say thrift. I got to hit the thrift shops, man, because
$20 thrift.
These kids show up at school sometimes, and I saw a kid with like a Super Bowl 30 sweatshirt on. I'm like, that's so cool, dude. Super Bowl 32, like winner, championship sweatshirt. I'm like, what the heck? Where did you get this stuff? And they're like, oh yeah, we're thrifting. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like, it's just, those are the things that's like, that's cool stuff. You know what I mean? I like the idea of doing that. I got to get out and start doing that.
Like this was a vintage store one, but they had like a $20 rack at the store, and I see this one immediately, and I'm like, it's my size, it's calling my name. It doesn't say which AFC Championship game it is. I just know it's from probably 2001 or 2004.
Who is it? Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you don't know which one it was?
Yeah, it just
01
says
or 04.
American Football Conference Championship, Steelers versus Patriots. It's a dope shirt.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, but then. Going back, so that's where I view it with them. Going forward, look, I was gonna wait to do this, but jump right into the deep end. I still say this with Drake. Look, I'm at the point with him where I'm like, I want to see him play because I liked what I saw against New York, but at the same time too, I'm always kind of preaching patience. But I feel like I don't know if it's so much that patience is wearing thin more with fans or with obviously not us podcasters, but the reporters, the people who get paid to write articles. And this isn't a knock on them, but I just feel like the more I'm hearing about it, the more they're banging the drum, to which I don't want that to persuade Gerard to, execute switch.
Well, and there's a few things. First of all, the good news for the Patriots is they can't start anyone different at left tackle because they're literally out of left tackles. They've started 4 left tackles in 4 games.
We're gonna call you next week.
And so they might, hey, listen, I passed the condition test, as everyone knows. So, like, I'm in. But you see what they have working over there, and you just think like,
It can't get worse.
what, right? Like, maybe it will get better, right? Maybe Aaron Lowe will come back healthy, and maybe Caden Wallace shows some promise. Right now, my biggest concern is that the guards look atrocious. Layden Robinson, I'm sorry, has looked embarrassing. He's been terrible. He just, and it's not just that. His run blocking is good, pretty good, even though he got beat on the 4th and 1. His run blocking has been pretty good. His pass blocking is brutal. I mean, brutal. And so it's like you can't he's a liability on the offensive line. And City So hasn't been much better at left. Now City So came back for the first time, from injury at left guard, but still, that concerns me, right? That concerns me. And here's the biggest thing with Drake Maye.
Yeah.
You're trying to build a culture, right? And the culture here isn't we're losers and we're tanking for next year.
Nope.
The culture is, yeah, we're not very good. Yeah, no one believes in us, but we can still go out there and win games if we need to. You don't get that culture by sitting your best quarterback. You just don't. You don't.
Yeah.
And I think in short order, the rest of the team is going to look at it and say, Jacoby has given everything he's got to this team. He's given everything he's got, right? He's tough as nails. He gets up every time he gets hit. We respect the hell out of the guy. He's a great leader. Love him. Really love him. Not a good quarterback. Drake Maye has shown in practice he can be that guy. Right now, again, I'm not saying that he has. I'm just saying here's a player looking at it. I watch him every day in practice, and I see that Drake Maye is clearly a better quarterback than Jacoby Brissett. And so now we've gone X amount of weeks. Say we're at 9 weeks. We're at week 9. I know we're playing the worst quarterback. Everyone knows we're playing the worst quarterback. And now I'm okay with that? Hell no, I'm not okay with that. I'm not playing for next year. I'm playing for this year. I'm playing for this game. I'm trying to win every damn game and look as good as I possibly can because life in the NFL is real short. It's real short. And if you're telling me you're all in and you're telling me that you're, yeah, okay, we're fine. We're here for the future too. But you're telling me that you have our backs, that you're going to do whatever it takes to win, then you better damn well do whatever it takes to win and put the kid out there because that's what we need, right? And I think at a certain point, you risk losing the locker room because you're banking on next year. They don't give a shit about that. They want to win, right? And so that's the thing that concerns me is that if you don't play him, you're going to run the risk of doing that with your team, and that's what can't happen. Once you look in practice and see that Maye is ready and he's better than Brissett, he's got to be the starter. He has to be because the rest of the team's going to see it, and everyone's going to sit there saying, "No, that's not going to work."
It's kind of like in competitive sport a lot of the time when you see like, oh, the coach's kid made the team, but the coach's kid really is not that good, and it's like the best player is not getting its time. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, the offensive line, but I'm like this. A good quarterback can not puzzle, but they can mask the mistakes of a bad offensive line. You can get out. You can basically you can take chicken shit and turn it into chicken salad. You can do that. My thing with Maye right now is just when I look at this next 4 games, there's a chance that they're going into November 2-2, which brings them to 3-5 going into November. I think this Sunday, obviously, is I don't want to say it's very winnable, but it's a winnable game. It's a game they can win. Miami, I'd rather be a 3-1 New England than what the 3-1 Dolphins are right now. We'll just say I'll leave that at that.
Yeah.
And then I know that we're in the throwbacks next Sunday, but having Houston coming in off of potentially having a bad game against Buffalo just scares the crap out of me, kind of like what happened with San Francisco. And then they go to London. I know Jacksonville's going to be there longer, but Jacksonville's not good. They're not a good team. They're not well coached. And then the Jet game, I have Jet fans messaging me saying like, oh, it could be a Jet takeover in Foxborough this year. And I'm just like, and then obviously they go into November with Tennessee, Chicago, LA, and Miami, which look, if New England was an average team, that's a 4-0 sweep right there, in my opinion. Those
Right.
4 games,
I
or
agree.
3-1. I'm just saying 4-0 because obviously you're going to be there for one of them.
Mhm.
And then you get into
Mhm.
December where it's Indy, where you don't know what you're going to get. My thing with Anthony Richardson is, I'll enjoy it from over here. You can have fun. Like when you like, hey, let's go ride the like at the carnival, the rickety old roller coaster. Let's go ride it. No, you can go ride it. I'll stay over here. Like,
Right.
I don't
That's
want
fair.
Anthony Richardson on my team. And then you have the Cardinals where, look, 1 week it's good, 1 week it's bad. Like 1 week, I don't know what to expect out of them. I feel like they're a work in progress. And then you finish with Josh Allen twice and Justin Herbert. So going back to my original point with Maye, I still don't think he starts Sunday. But if they lose and it's because of Jacoby, I'm sorry. I don't care what happens in the Texan game. You have to put him in the Texan game because I do not want his first start to be in London. That's not the right thing to do. You don't start him in a neutral site, standalone game just because, look, I know Jackson, like I was saying, Jacksonville's not good, but I
Right.
think it's just better for him that, look, 3 of your 4 games in October are at Gillette Stadium. You start him in one of those 3. One of those 3 games is where he takes over. I always had week 5 or week 6 pegged as it. I think it's week 6 or 8, worst case scenario at this point.
Yeah, I can't imagine starting in week 8 only because you have that weird transition week where you're coming home from London, right?
They got
So
screwed not getting the bye.
yeah, and you know what? They chose to do that, right? You can choose to either take the bye or bookend it with home games, right? So you have a home game before and a home game after. And the Patriots chose to not take the bye afterwards. Why they did that, I don't know. My assumption is that they wanted a late bye so that they could put Drake Maye in after the bye. That's what I think. That they looked at it and said, okay, we're going to draft a young quarterback. We have the number 3 overall pick. Whether it's Daniels or Maye, we're taking a quarterback. And our plan is to sit him until the end of the year. So give us a late bye. We'll take the late bye, and then we'll start him weeks 15, 16, 17, and 18 and give him 4 starts to start his career. That was the plan, right? I think. And I don't know. Again, I have no inside information on that. But why else would they turn down the bye after the London game? Makes no sense.
Yeah.
Other than to do that. So that's kind of my thought process on it. But you sped up the timeline. But you have. You just have. And again, I just go back to the players. The players, who gives a shit about the fans? And the media, who cares what the media says? Right? It doesn't matter, right? Again, we're just 2 idiots talking on a podcast. Like, whatever. Who cares? Why? Joe Arman doesn't listen to us, right?
Or Bob from Farmingham thinks.
Right, exactly, right? And so, but it's the players. It's the players, again, if they look out there and they say the best quarterback isn't under center,
yeah,
what are we doing? Why do I care? Why am I going to bust my ass every day if he's not even putting in the best player? Right. And that's something where people will revolt against that. I mean, look, you look at the bad coaching situations that have popped up around the league, right? Shane Waldron last year in Seattle, people hated him. Remember he left and JSN was like, oh, he's leaving or whatever. And people were like, oh my God, can you believe it? And he's like, yeah. Or someone was, I think he was on with
Rich Eisen, I think.
No, he was on like a regular podcast. He was like streaming or something like that. And they announced that he was getting hired in
Chicago.
Right? They announced it, and he was like, oh, okay. All right. Yeah, sure. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
It was just like, and it was like, what? What do you mean good luck with that? Like, we don't. And then, you see the outcome, right? And so it's those types of things where it's like that resentment builds. And if you want this to be a real thing, if AVP is your guy and Gerard Mayo is your guy, you got to figure this out, right? You can't be screwing around with this, and the players get pissed off, and it's like then you ruin your culture. And the whole thing is supposed to be the culture, and then you're going to ruin it because you're worried about your rookie quarterback. And I get it. Listen, I don't want him to get killed behind the offensive line either, and maybe he's not 100% ready, but if he's 85% ready, and Jacoby Brissett looks as bad as he's looked, I don't think you have a choice. Like, and look. Your best offensive weapon right now is Pop Douglas. He won't throw him the ball. He won't throw him the ball. I don't know why, but he won't throw him the ball. So he's been open a ton of times. Won't throw it to him. The interception was a phenomenal play. A phenomenal play by Fred Warner. He had two other guys open on that.
It's an all-pro
Like,
for
what are you
a reason, though.
doing? You know, and that's the type of stuff for me that's like, you start to look at it and you just ask yourself, like, what are we doing here, man? Why is this guy still in here? Right. And that's what these guys are going to ask themselves. That's what they ask the coaches. And unless they have a sufficient answer that, again, cares about this year right now, they're not going to want to hear it.
Obviously, look, long-term's the thing with this team. This is a long-term pitcher window. It's a just long-term everything. You know, it's like not even on to 25, but like at this point right now, even if this team ends up going 4-13, 5-12, 6-11, which I know a lot of non-Patriot fans out there are just groveling at us talking about winning 3, 4, 5 more football games over the next 3 months. But you know what? It's reality.
Yeah.
It's next year when you want to see this team go 8-9 and challenge for a playoff spot late in the year, but obviously miss out. And then it's like the growth we've seen. I don't want to say Houston or Washington just because those were like get your quarterback and go, which I'll say this. I said this last episode, but I'll say this to you. I don't know why, but I'm low-key kind of happy for Washington just because they're like one of those fan bases that's been lacking a franchise quarterback for years, and now you've finally found your best quarterback since Doug Williams. I know RG3 was there, but obviously he was hurt, and so it's Doug Williams for me. And then Houston, I don't want to say that because obviously, look, they had good runs in the 2010s. They just couldn't beat Tom Brady. And then you had Deshaun Watson for a few years before he went to crap. But when you look at like what Detroit went through, which this is like Detroit right now, the team's like not there, but at the same time too, you don't want it to be all the month of December and then like you wait till play May. And then say if you miraculously win your last 4 games, say, you know, he starts after the bye, which I'll say this right now. I don't like the December bye. I personally don't. My preferred timeline would be November 3rd or November 10th, right there, right at the beginning of November. That's what I grew up. I feel like the Patriots had that every year. It was always November. It was like an odd exception one year. I think they had it like week 4 or 5. But besides that, it's always mid-season, which is ideal. They had it last year.
I agree with you. Yeah.
But then if they go there and then they basically start in the last 4 games and say if they go 3-1, and everyone's going to – it causes 2 ripple effects. It causes the ripple effect of, hey, this team is good. And there's a lot to look forward to for next year. And they can bring in free agents. But then there's a ripple effect of why did you not play the kid sooner? You know, It's not like we're going to make the playoffs, but it's the whole – it's like a wasted season in a sense. Like Detroit, I don't want to say it was a wasted season in 21 when they started winning some games towards the end. It was more of like, hey, they're finding their footing. Dan Campbell's message is getting across. Meanwhile, now with Gerard Mayo, you really need to do that because you don't want to go into the offseason with an awkward locker room. Because like this past offseason, it was great. The vibe seemed great. Everyone kind of seemed like, you know, like they're letting loose, they're letting their guard down. And then the next big thing too with all this is they're still one of their best wide receivers is going to be coming back. I don't know about this week, maybe next week, maybe the week after. Obviously, KB, who traveled with the team to San Francisco. So you have that going for you as well. So there's so many elements to this to where I'll say this right now, even if say if Sunday, if they win, but it's like 13-10, it's just a grimy football game where your kicker gets piss tested after the game. You got to look at it for Houston and go, okay, look, there's a really good elite AFC team. And I know Houston, they're not like elite, but like they're definitely an upper echelon team. Like that's what I mean by like when I say elite, like, you know, like they're in that like that sub category below. Like I think Baltimore, KC, and Buffalo are like kind of here, and then it's like Houston's that like next man up, like in that like middle group, like just below the best group. But you know you don't want to do Jacoby because if you throw Jacoby out there, what's the message you're telling your team? You're basically saying, hey, we're prepared to lose this game. No, you should be going into every game thinking, hey, we can win this, and that's what Drake Maye can provide you. You just gotta you have to take the leash off the dog to see if the dog will run or not.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, it's not just that too. If you lose on Sunday to this Miami Dolphins team, that is just pitiful. I'll tell you what, man. I mean, I don't think Tua is a particularly great quarterback, but maybe he's a lot better than we give him credit for because this offense looks like the worst offense in the NFL without Tua.
The Titans by 20 last night.
That's crazy. I mean, it's absolutely insane, right? It's insane to think that this team sucks that bad. And so, especially after seeing what they've done, right? And so, you know, then you look at it and say, okay, well, maybe Tua's not as bad as we thought, right? So, um, but either way, you lose that team, and now it's like, what are we? What? No. That can't happen. Like, that's not okay. And so I can see them making a change at that point. I understand why they don't want to. I get it. Especially with the offensive line, especially if David Andrews is out. The thing about the center in this offense is that the center makes so many calls, and that takes so much off the plate of the quarterback, right?
Yep.
If you have Nick Leverett in there at center, and I like him, I think he's a fan favorite type of guy. I think he's a good locker room guy, and he's a good, like, kind of super sub. Now, he struggled mightily snapping the ball in preseason, right? It was bad, but it was fine. It looked fine on Sunday. So, assuming that that's fine, it still concerns me because I'm not as comfortable with him making all those calls, right?
Yep.
And I'm certainly not having Drake Maye do it in his first go round, right? Are they going to have Jacoby Brissett making those calls, for the offensive line on Sunday? I don't know the answer to that question, right? And Andrews might be healthy. We don't know, right? We'll see what happens on Wednesday, but that's a question that I don't have the answer to. If David Andrews is going to be out long term, then I'm not starting Drake Maye. I don't want to start Drake Maye. I'll tell you right now, if David Andrews is going to be out 2 weeks, I'm not starting Drake Maye without David Andrews. I'll wait until David Andrews is healthy again, right? Because I don't want his first start to be with Nick Leverett. Unless it has to be. If Andrews out for the year, well, then what are you going to do? Like, he's got to play at some point this year, and then you just figure it out. But, if he's going to miss this week or this week and next week, I'll wait to play him because I want him. I have to have that guy, helping him out in his first career start. At least that's my personal opinion. But, I don't know. I go back and forth and kind of see, arguments for both sides. I had thought that maybe this might be a good opportunity to start him. Their defense their defense is good, but it hasn't been great. Houston's defense is better, I think. So that'd be more challenging, certainly with Will Anderson there. I mean, that's a problem. Will Anderson's a problem on that team. And so, that's going to be an issue for him, especially with no left tackle or no real left tackle. But, I wouldn't hate it. Listen, I wouldn't hate if his first start was over in London.
Yeah.
I mean, and the reason why I wouldn't hate that, number one, Jacksonville's friggin' terrible. They are just god awful. But number two, and the biggest thing for me is that it's a no stress. You're not at home. You're not in front of the home crowd. The crowd's just cheering for everyone. It's a neutral site. It doesn't matter. It's not super, there's less pressure. And yes, the standalone game, but it's 9:30 in the morning. Like, those games always suck anyways. Like, nobody cares, right? It's a morning game, like, whatever, I think it's not a terrible first start for him. But I don't know if that's the ideal situation, but I don't think it's a terrible first start for him. I do think what you're saying makes the most sense with Houston next week. I just think Houston makes sense. There's been a big push. There was a huge push last week about how good he's doing, how good he looks in practice, and players are talking about it, and so on and so on and so on. And you're getting all this information. It seemed like something was ready to happen, and then it's not. So then you're like, well, okay, is it going to happen next week? Maybe it will. We'll see. But if Brissett throws up another clunker like he did in the last 2 games, I just don't know how. I mean, what he set his single season passing high last week with 137 or something stupid like that. Like, it's just like, come on, like, what? With no passing attack at all. And yes, the offensive line hasn't been good, but some of those pressures are on Jacoby because he's not getting the flipping ball out, right? And so, he hasn't. You combat a bad offensive line with, decisive throws by your quarterback, and he hasn't done that, and that's a problem.
Plus, too, he'll look good wearing Pat on his shoulders. So that's the
Right,
other
baby.
reason for that as well. Because obviously, it's weird. It's the Texans game and then the Colts game, which I feel like that first week of December they've always worn it. They did it against Buffalo. They did it last year in that god awful Chargers game, and then obviously they're doing it this year against the Colts.
Chargers game.
I
forgot that was a throwback. That's one of the worst games I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, but then you don't want that going forward for the rest of the year. You don't want to go to London and deliver that performance. Obviously, London games are low scoring for a reason. The thing called Lunder exists in the betting community.
Yeah.
But you don't want to wait until it's too late because look, you don't want to do it because like when I say there's that pressure in the smoke, like how it's saying two guys podcasting like you and I right now, some guy in a bar watching NBC Boston and watching, I don't know what that show title is on, but I know I've seen like Callahan on it. I know a bunch of guys do it. Michael Hawley does it. Tom Curran. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
I think Kyrie's been on it a couple of times.
Yep.
As I think I hear Reese in the background.
I sure do. Yep.
But not the first dog to have appeared on this podcast either. Which I'm going to go on a little side tangent. Fun fact: there was one time I actually podcasted with Sophie, and her dog literally was sitting right next to her as we were recording, and then the dog was silent the entire show. So props to her dog for that. But yeah, you eventually have to pull the trigger because it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I'll do it next week. It's like, it's like paying a bill. It's like, you know what? Oh, like, well, wait to pay it. I'll wait to pay I'll pay the gas. Oh, it's due on the 17th. I'll pay it on the 12th. No, if you feel like you have the funds to do it, do it. Don't wait to do it because the more you wait, the more you anger the fan base. And the louder that gets, because we don't want to be in a world next year where it's, Gerard Mayo's got to take that step forward. Otherwise, his name's going to be on the hot seat. You don't want that whole, what we're seeing with Eberflus. I know Chicago's 2-2, but Eberflus's name still be floated around to where if they don't make the playoffs, he's going to be gone.
Yeah.
You have a similar situation too in Vegas right now, where I still say this, where look, for as good as they've looked in a couple of their games, Antonio Pierce isn't the guy. I still believe he's there because, Max Crosby threatened to move on and they basically granted Max's wish, which brings me to the next point of obviously Davante Adams being available. But I would like to see a name of like if the Patriots are involved, like if they do like what they did with Ayuk. I don't expect Adams to come here, nor do I want to do it for a 32-year-old receiver at $17 million. Who's like I said, 32, turning 32, disgruntled. Davante Adams, look, would it be great for the Patriots? Absolutely. Would I love to have it? Absolutely. Logistically and smart, say do not do that move. You are not in a place to trade draft picks. You don't do the trade. You don't do we're going to mortgage our future on one player like the Carolina Panthers have had, because then guess what? You're just setting yourself back to even if it's a second rounder, guess what? 32, 33, 34, 35. I know 32 is first round, but I just started at the number. You basically set yourself up to where then, you can go out and get a Davante Adams that's 11 years younger.
Right.
He's going to make a lot less money in the short term.
Well, and not just that, right? But like, you're a self-proclaimed draft and develop team.
That too.
You just traded Matthew Judon, your best healthy defensive player, for a third-round pick.
Who's looked good for Atlanta.
Right? Now you're going to trade a second-round pick for Davante Adams, who...
Same age as Judon.
Right. Wanted out of Green Bay, now wants out of Vegas. And what? He's going to come here and be happy? No way, dude.
No.
You're going to have to restructure his deal. And listen, you got money, right? You got plenty of money. Don't get me wrong. You got tons of money.
Yeah.
You like Davante Adams? Guess what? If you like Davante Adams enough, maybe he's out of his contract because it's really the last year of his deal this year. He has 2 years left, but he really only has 1 year left. If he's a free agent, throw a bag at him. Go ahead. That's fine. Why are you trading anything for that guy? That's insane. It's completely insane to think that you would do something like that. So, to me, I don't know if he's a fit here anyway. I mean, it doesn't matter if he's a fit or not. He's a million times better than anyone they have. So, like, who cares where he goes? Just put him somewhere, right? But to me, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. You don't give up the draft capital. You're saving for next year. That's the whole point, right? Like, I get it. He's really good.
5 picks in the first 103.
Right. But like at a certain point, it's like, okay, well, what do you want us to do? Right? Fine, he's good. Is he going to stay after this year? Is he going to be happy here? Is he going to take snaps away from Jalen Polk? Yes. So what are we doing? Like, I want to give Jalen Polk as many opportunities as I possibly can. I want to give him and Demario Douglas every single opportunity. And you know what? Put Kayshon Boutte out there, because I'll tell you what,
had a couple good moments.
Taekwon's done nothing. He's done absolutely nothing. I want Kayshon Boutte out there. I want Javon Baker out there. I want Jalen Polk, and I want Damari Douglas. Those 4 guys, and see if Booty can give you anything. Has been incredibly inconsistent for his 2 years here, but see if he can give you anything, because you haven't gotten anything from Taekwon. You've gotten less than nothing from KJ Osborne. So, like, just play those guys, play the young guys, and see what happens. That's the way I would do it, at least from a wide receiver perspective. And to give up something to get Devontae Adams is just completely insane. I think the Chiefs should be a team that should throw, bro, trade a first-round pick for him. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's Devontae freaking Adams. You don't have a healthy wide receiver. You literally don't have – you have Xavier Worthy. That's it. Xavier Worthy's a gadget guy. Fast as hell. He's a gadget guy. And you put Devontae Adams on a team? Holy crap. Now you got Adams and Kelsey with Worthy over the top. Whew. And that first-round pick is a late first-round pick. You know it's going to be in the high 20s or 30s. So whatever, dude. Who cares? Right? That's what I would do. Or I'd send a second and a fourth or something like that.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't want to sign next year, good. So what? I don't care. I'm trying to win another Super Bowl. I'm trying to be the first team ever to win 3 in a row.
Yeah, that's literally it, because they're a 4-0 team right now that has their top running back with a broken leg, their top wide receiver, which I know it's like, oh, we're going to wait and see, find out. No, it's a torn ACL. Unless there's just the structural damage isn't as much as we think, it's probably a torn ACL. You make that move because guess what? Kansas City's offense has been inept. I know Travis Kelce had a decent game on Sunday, and CBS was deciding to go, oh, all the hot takes. I'm like, no. Travis Kelce finally had a good game because their top player went out. But when you play competent defenses, guess what? They are going to cover him, and you're going to have to rely on Worthy, and you're going to have a bad time if you're relying on Xavier Worthy to win you football games.
They have Juju. They'll be fine.
Oh, God, Lord. But no, the thing with New England for this year is, though, just play with what you have. Don't, you played with your food. You got caught. You have to own up to it. And then in March, you know what? The fact that they have no significant free agents going into next year. There's no one. Like, look, Hunter, I know everyone from this past year free agency that we were worried about. Michael Wenu, 3-year deal. Ramondre Stevenson, I know there's question marks. He's got the yips right now, but he's locked up too. Christian Barmore got locked up. Hunter Henry, Kendrick Bourne. The only one is Josh Uche, but that's a player where if he stays, he stays. If he goes, he goes.
Right.
It doesn't matter. I was prepared for him to go last year. I was prepared for him to go last year, and then he signed that cheap deal, and I was just like, well, okay. But that's the thing with next year then. If you want to throw a bag at Devontae Adams, if you want to go, try to lure Chase or Higgins, which, look, Mike Brown's cheap. Mike Brown doesn't want to pay his guys. So you either do the Jerry Jones thing and you pay him way too late and you pay him over market value, or you just let him walk and you regret it. Because with Cincinnati, I don't know what's going to happen there. But even though I know some people saying T. Higgins could sign in New England and he'll never live up to the deal, it's a number 1 receiver, but they're not going to have to – they won't have to pay T. Higgins – he probably won't command 30 plus a year. You probably get him for somewhere in the 20s. And
but even if he does, who cares? It's just money. The salary cap is going up and up and up. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Like,
cash cow.
You just need a guy, right? You need a guy. If T. Higgins is that guy and you think he can be that guy, you sign him. Yeah. And, I look at it like, as a pitcher contract in baseball, right? They would always say the pitcher contracts, you'd sign the pitcher to a massive, 8-year insane number deal. Is it worth it? No, it was not worth it when you signed it, but you got to have the guy. So you got to go get him. And that's the cost of doing business. And like, I'll overpay for a guy. I don't care as long as he's that good. I didn't want to overpay for Calvin Ridley because I didn't think he was that good. If you think T. Higgins is that good, overpay for him. I got no problem with that, right? And by the way, Calvin Ridley, what's he done in Tennessee? Not much. So, like, and listen, he's been really bad, but like still, So.
And then with Brandon Ayuk too, because I remember I spoke to Sophie McGarvin about this. I spoke to Callahan about this. I spoke to you about this. My whole thing with him was, if he's not here by the end of July, I don't really want to entertain the conversation. And he wasn't. And I know he had a couple flashes on Sunday, but Christian Gonzalez kept him in line for, I'd say, 90% of that game. So, and I know everyone like, look, Gonzo's contract's going to be coming up. He's going to want money, but that you can worry about that in 2026. You don't have to worry about, we got to pay Christian, we got to pay Keon. You do that in 26, 25. If you're going to spend your money, you don't have to do it in-house. You go out and do it you go get guys who won't walk away after 2 games. You
Correct.
don't
Yeah.
pay guys like Chooks. You can go out there. I know he's not that good, but the first name that comes to mind for free agency offensive lineman is Garrett Bowles. I know it's not the most flashy name, but it's
Right.
someone that's out there. So it's the same sort of thing. And the way you view the T. Higgins contract, on a hockey note, I just went through that with Tavares. Obviously, look, he's coming on last year of an $11 million deal. Was did the deal age well? No, because most deals in hockey, by the end of them, unless you're an elite player, they don't age well. But that's the cost of doing business, like you said.
Right.
You're going through it right now with Swayman, so you know
Yep.
exactly where, what the price of doing business is when it comes to sports. And unlike the NBA, NHL, MLB, football is the one league where, look, the cap's going up every year. The hockey cap's at $92 million. Before we know it, we're going to snap our fingers. That salary cap's $300 million. Right now, they're sitting somewhere between 259, high 250s or 260s, I believe. Somewhere
Yeah,
in that
it's huge.
region. It's
huge.
huge.
And it's going to keep going up, right? Like you said. I mean, it's just, and so it's spend the money. Who cares? It's just money. It ultimately doesn't matter, right? You're not mortgaging your future to do that. And I think too, like you say, okay, I got to pay Gonzalez and I got to pay Keon White, theoretically, right? If Keon White continues this trajectory.
Those are good problems to have.
Right. And I'm okay with that because, okay, you pay the league corner. Sure. How much is Keon White going to want? We'll see. Right. But again, like you said, that's a 2026 problem. You can't even sign them until 2026. Even if you wanted to, you couldn't sign them until 2026. So, it becomes those types of things where you look at it and say, well, yeah, what do you want us to do? Like we literally can't sign you yet, And so, we'll see. I think pay whoever you want, right? Pay whomever you want. And again, the tackle situation, there were no really good tackles in this year's free agent class. You picked the wrong one. Right? Chooks was talent-wise about the same as the rest of the guys, but they screwed up the eval with him. That, he quit on them. He's gone. Maybe he's retired. Maybe he's not. Who knows, right? And it could have been a mental health thing. I have no idea, right?
Yeah.
But either way, you screwed it up, right? And so you picked the wrong guy. Okay, that happens. You're going to pick the wrong guy from time to time. Just the way it goes, right? And so, what are you going to do to fix it? Well, we got to go out and number one, better go out and draft a guy. You better go out and draft a guy. And then you better sign someone. And I'm okay with a guy like Garrett Bowles because he gives you good flexibility on both sides. I can play him at tackle. Maybe he's a swing tackle. Maybe he's a backup. I'm okay with that. I don't mind that because I need as much depth as I can get at that, at the tackle position.
So I'm just going through right now just the list of upcoming free agents. Zach Martin's on here, but I just don't. I think that's more of a retirement situation than a more of a retirement, or just stays in Dallas. The other one as well that I noticed here. So this was done in August. So Dak and CD were first, but then there was update. Dak signed this. Creed Humphrey was 4, but right behind Creed Humphrey at guard is Trey Smith from the Kansas City Chiefs. Because for as much as we like to dog on them for their horrendous tackle play the last few years, with Juwan Taylor hasn't been that best. Donovan Smith he's been borderline unplayable since he's been in Tampa. I don't know how Kansas City. And now they have Kingsley, which Kingsley got fed to the wolves at certain stances where he was just getting cooked. Yeah. But a guy like Trey Smith at right guard could be a potential move if you want to kick Onwenu out to tackle, or if you want to kick Onwenu to the left. I'm like, when I was looking at the list, it's just
I like him a lot. I don't know how I feel about paying a guard big money. I just don't know how I feel about it, right? I'd rather draft guards late in the draft. You can find those guys. They found Shaq Mason. They found Joe Tooney. You can find more. Trey Smith himself was a 6th-round draft pick. So, or maybe even a 7th-round draft pick. But I'm okay with drafting guards and just stockpiling them and seeing what happens, right? The guard play right now isn't good. And so if you look at it and say, we don't love any of the guards we have, they're not progressing the way we want them to, Trey Smith would be a huge upgrade. We don't mind paying him the extra money. I'm okay with that. If that's the route you want to go, and you draft your left tackle of the future, and you feel like you got something good with Caden Wallace on the right side. My biggest thing is I would move, as soon as they can, as soon as people are healthy. I think the move is lower with left tackle, Wallace at right tackle. Kick Onwenu back into right guard. He's been bad at right tackle.
Yeah.
Right? He's been
That was the
bad.
Jet game.
And so, and again, he was fine against San Fran, but he wasn't great. He was fine. And the thing is, he's a very good right guard. And Layden Robinson's been bad. He started off the season good. He's been bad now. So you say, okay, we upgrade the right guard spot because Onwenu's significantly better, right, at right guard than Layden Robinson. And we don't get much worse at right tackle. That's a net positive, right? That's a net positive for the Patriots. The right side of the offensive line looks better because Caden Wallace is at right tackle and Mike Onwenu is at right guard. That's the way I see it. Now, I don't know if they're going to look at it the same way. They were trying to move to have Caden Wallace play left tackle. Why they're doing that, I don't know. I don't understand the insistence on doing that, especially now since Okorafor is gone. Okorafor is gone. He's not playing right tackle anymore. He's not doing it. So who's your right tackle? And why does it have to be Mike Onwenu? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me. It should be Caden Wallace at right tackle and Mike Onwenu at right guard, and then figure out the other guard spot, you know?
Yeah. So I was looking it up as well just to see a little history on Trey. He did ever since he's gone to Kansas City, he's been right guard. He did play. He did play a little bit of tackle at Tennessee. Picked 226, by the way, so he was a 6th round pick in 2021. It's
226 is 7th round pick, isn't it?
Let me go back to the good old wiki. No, 221, 226, round 6.
Round 6. Well, okay.
2021. But yeah, no, Tennessee. He played at left tackle. By the way, he didn't play right tackle, so he played left tackle at Tennessee, and he also played. So fun fact, he was moved to left guard because now current Kansas City Chief Wanya Morris at Tennessee came over and was playing left tackle because in his sophomore season, Smith didn't play because of blood clot issues with his lungs. So he was going through something similar to Christian Barmore. He's currently going through. So basically that's what happened. And then, and then he started all 10 games and earned SEC all SEC honors for his final season as a volunteer. When I look at the tackle class for next year for free agency, the other name that sticks out is Ronnie Stanley, but that's going to be a very expensive contract. And also, too, Ronnie Stanley can't stay healthy, so that's another big concern.
Yeah.
That's a very high risk, high reward kind of contract.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a lot of the names I'm looking on here. It's like Patrick McCary, Garrett Bowles, Cam Robinson, Jedrick Wills, Trenton Brown, even though he's and then Chooks, but Trent Brown's not obviously he's done for the season with a patella, I believe he hurt against the Commanders.
Yeah.
In this class, like Walker Little, who was very disappointing ever since he came out from Stanford. Quisenberry, who's a backup. Dylan Raydunes, but I confused him with that's a center as well. I confused him for a second with Quinn Miners, so I know Miners just signed a big contract with the Broncos, I think like a month ago. But basically, it's one of those things where for now, you just have to make it work with what you got. And then in the offseason, we can fantasize about what players we want this team to sign at the offensive line position. Because for next year, essentially, your defense it's not set, but most of the guys that are here now are probably going to be here next year unless you do something catastrophic.
Yeah.
It's more just next year. It's like, hey, offense, week 1, they got to be ready to go.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I'm not ready to go, but you know what I mean. Like you want to see more help, you want to see improvement.
Yeah, 100%. And the defense, I think you're going to get improvement with Barmore coming back, right? Yeah. I think corner is an area of need for you. You need to find another corner that can play football. They can play real football. We'll see, but I think you need to find a corner. I think that linebacker is a need again. Juwan Bentley's great. And Jelani Tavai is really good too, but that's the thing is we saw this happen, back when the Hightower got hurt, right? And it was, other guys trying to fill in for him, and it wasn't going. Kyle Van Noy, I believe it was, trying to fill in for Dr. Hightower, and it's like not his role. Can't do it. He just can't do it. And so Tavai's fine, but they also have to stop running this freaking Tampa 2 where they got Jelani Tavai 30 yards downfield covering Brandon Ayuk. Like, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
And they did it in the end zone. I mean, it drives me insane. So, anyways, but that's that's neither here nor there, I suppose. But like, that's frustrating, and that's a scheme thing. So like, yeah, you don't have the horses, but like, I don't want Raekwon McMillan doing that either. I don't want Juwan Bentley doing that either. So I don't know what we're talking about. I don't like that call. I just don't. I just think it doesn't work. And you've seen it doesn't work. So defensively, yeah, you got some areas of need, right? I'd like another pass rusher. I'd like another guy that can get after the passer. Those guys don't grow on trees though, so it's not going to be easy to get a guy like that. But you might be able to get one in the third round, maybe. Or again, you sign one, and again, you have unlimited cap space. Do whatever you want. Sign whoever you want.
Yeah.
If you want to look at it and say, I'm going to sign whoever I want. I need this position, this position, this position. I'm going to go out and sign those guys. Do it.
Yeah.
Do it. And this is the biggest problem that I have with the Patriots is that for the last 5 years, and I don't want to rehash the Belichick stuff, but for the last 5 years, they've ignored positions of need. They've ignored the offensive line, right? The offensive line 5 years ago was fine. It was fine. It was actually above average.
Yeah.
Right. And now it's trash. And why is it trash? Because you never replaced Trent Brown, because you never found a real right tackle, because you got rid of all of your guards and drafted a guy in the first round out of a small school, because, and you just have David Andrews. And David Andrews has been here forever, which is great, but you still don't have a guy.
But
So
he's on
it's
the
like
back nine.
You know what I mean? Right. And it's like you don't have anyone behind him. So that's the frustrating part for me is like, we've seen this coming. The same thing happened to the tight end position. Gronk retires after the 2018 season. You go into 2019, who do we have at tight end? We got nobody at tight end.
Yeah.
So now we have no one. Well, you could have drafted Mike Gesicki. You could have drafted Dallas Goedert. You could have drafted those guys before Gronk retired. You could have drafted those guys. Did you? No, you didn't. Oh, crap. All right. Well, now we don't have anyone.
Devin
So we're going to
Asiasi and Dalton Keene.
Right. So we're going to play 2019. Our tight ends stink. So 2020, what do? We trade up twice in the third round and draft 2 tight ends. Turns out they both stink. So what do? You go out and you spend an insane amount of money on 2 tight ends. One of them
worked, one didn't.
Solid, right? One of them stinks and can't play for you. And he's been okay at other places. He's fine. But you gave all this money to both those guys. And it's like, if you had just drafted guys, you just have to throw bodies at it, because the draft and even free agency can be a crapshoot. You need bodies. You can't ignore the position. So you have to draft guys. And you can't draft them all in the 7th round. You got to draft some guys earlier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's the stuff for me where it's like you have to do it. Now, look, wide receiver is a great example of that. The Patriots have whiffed on wide receiver over and over and over again. But how many times have they really taken a top flight guy? Not very often, right? They did it in 2006 and they whiffed. And the best part is there's always guys after it. They did it in 2013 and they whiffed. They did it in 2019.
Haven't done it since 03, I believe, or 02. I don't remember.
Yes. 02, I think, was his rookie year.
Yeah,
Deion Branch's rookie year. But so you did it in 2019, you whiffed. You did it in 2022, you whiffed. Now you did it again. So that's only a 2-year gap. Like that was, 19 to 22 to 24. Yep. You've done it a good amount now. You got to keep doing it. I know you drafted another guy in the 4th round. That's good, but you got to keep doing it. And they drafted somewhere in there, they drafted Brandon Tate in the 3rd, and they drafted Taylor Price in the 3rd as well. So like they didn't completely ignore it, but it's like, you got to go after those guys, right? And every now and again, you're going to hit on some 7th round stud like Julian Edelman, but you can't bank on those guys.
That's a 1 in a million bank.
Right.
That's just the thing. Before we shift gears and wrap up, has there been a player on the for me, there's been a couple players that have been nice surprises. One I kind of said as a hot take where I was like, for what he was brought into, I think he's done his role fine. I mean, that's Austin Hooper. He had a touchdown on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't been terrible. You haven't noticed him. That's the thing with a lot of these like no name like linemen or thing like why I say Nick Leverett, because with him, you didn't have to call his name out Sunday where it's like, oh, yeah, he's playing this bad. Like we did with Onwenu against the Jets.
Right.
But for me so far, the most pleasant surprise has honestly been Antonio Gibson. I like the signing from
Yeah.
when it happened. He's had a couple big runs against Seattle and San Francisco. I think it's a matter of time before he gets to the end zone. It's going to be interesting to see Sunday what they do with Ramondre's playing time. Because you can't, if he keeps on fumbling, you can't keep having him as RB1. You have to do a committee backfield.
Well, and that's going to be really interesting. That's going to be a really interesting thing that happens. Man, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure. So, who's it? I don't know. It's just like, I look at it and I say, who's the guy that's going to take over, right? Who's going to be, and Ramondre should be that guy. He should be the guy you feed and he'll take over a game and you could just give him the ball. And if he's not going to be that guy, then you're right. You don't have a choice other than to committee him and Antonio Gibson. So it sucks. It's a crappy situation. But that's the situation that you're in, unfortunately. I think Joey Sly has been great. Obviously got drug tested. But I think that to me is great. He's been solid for them. He's been arguably their best offensive player, which is nice. And I think Jalen Polk, we were expecting things from Jalen Polk. He's consistently beating man coverage. He's consistently getting open.
Yep.
His percentage is number one. I think he's like 20, almost 29% where he's getting open against man coverage. It's pretty good. That's tops among rookie wide receivers. And so, he's got a ways to go, but like sometimes Jacoby's just not getting the ball at times too.
Yeah.
So there are moments that I see with him, which I'm excited about. But again, am I super surprised? Not necessarily, but I am pleasantly surprised just because he's a rookie and we typically don't see things from rookies. And so I was pleasantly surprised by that.
I have been too. He showed that he can do things early. Like even though he had the no catch on Sunday, like things like learning how to position your body, that's just going to come with time.
Yeah.
Like look, I don't blame him for what he did in that game Sunday.
I know you can't see the left knee. I think there's a chance that the left knee was down. You just couldn't see it. I think there's a chance that if they had called that a catch on the field, I always think you should call it a catch. I just always think you should always call it a catch on the field. You can always overturn it. I just feel like you always call it a catch on the field, and if it's close. And then, do you want to overturn it? Do it. Go ahead. Do it. Like, I got no problem with that. But, and it didn't, not that it mattered as far as the game is concerned, but, it was a nice play by him regardless. And I think Brissett's done this multiple times where he just throws it so far to the sideline. Polk's had times where he's been open and he just ends up out of bounds. And it's like, well, can you get the ball to the guy in bounds, please?
Yeah.
And that same issue happened on Sunday where I know he's trying to get it in between, the corner and the safety. I get that. Safety's sitting right there anyways. What difference does it make if it's 2 feet more inside? It doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's just the thing with that, where it's just like, look, I think it's just overtime. It's going to happen. Sunday had a real bad referee problem for both sides. There was just some calls where it's like, you didn't need to call that. It adds that fuel to the referees like to take the game over narrative, which no one likes to see.
Yeah. The Taekwondo one was so bad. Oh, yeah. So bad. On the throwback pass, in the lateral play.
Yeah, that's legal block in the back.
In no way, shape, or form was that a block in the back.
That one and the George Kittle one.
Yeah, and they got Kittle for something too. It's just like, and it's not even like the Patriots got screwed. It was like on both sides. It's like, what? Yeah. What did you see on that play? What did you see on that play that made you call that? And so I get that I guess he was on the outside of his shoulder or something like that. But like, come on, like, what are we doing? And there were multiple plays like that where they just felt like they were just throwing the flag, and the refs were almost like, "No, it hasn't been a flag in a while. Let's throw a few flags here," and it's like, all right, we get it. You're still here.
Let's go crazy with the hankies.
Yeah.
Before we wrap, and we'll take a little Patriot detour here, so we don't upset each other anymore. Throughout the first, obviously, look, it kind of sucks to say that we're a quarter of the way through the season. It is what it is. Has there been a team out there that has surprised you both in a good way and a bad way, like one for each?
I mean, Minnesota's got to be the team, right? It got to be Minnesota. Minnesota, I mean, 4-0 was insane. Sam Darnold's playing outside of his mind. And that
laughed at
team,
me when I said coaching matters for them.
it absolutely does. It absolutely does. And it doesn't hurt that they got a ton of talent on that team too. I don't understand why Green Bay would prefer Josh Jacobs over Aaron Jones. It doesn't make sense to me. I guess he's younger, but like Aaron Jones is a damn good running back, and he's showing that again in Minnesota this year. So that's the good. The good. I mean, the bad, I guess Miami, but Miami's not even well. So let's put it a different way, right? Coaching matters, right?
Absolutely.
As you said, JJ McCarthy goes down with an injury. He can't start. Now you're starting Sam Darnold. All right. Not ideal, but you're starting Sam Darnold. And he hasn't been good anywhere, but all of a sudden he's good for you. Why is all of a sudden he good for you? That's interesting. Maybe it's because you're a good coach and you got a good scheme. Miami has a ton of talent.
Yep.
They got a ton of speed everywhere. Those guys aren't hurt. Tua's hurt, but those guys aren't.
They didn't have a plan B for quarterback.
And even if they don't, Skylar Thompson, you can't tell. I mean, okay, Sam Darnold's got the tools. I get it. But like Skylar Thompson, Snoop Huntley, like Snoop's won some games now with Baltimore back in the day. He could get you something. He'd give you something more than what you've gotten out of that offense, right? And I think that some of that has to go to the coaching. I think some of it has to be on the coaching. And so, look, are they going to be like, a Super Bowl contender without Tua? No, of course not. But I think that, when you look at it, you ask yourself, like, all right, are they really that bad, right? I will say the other team that I'm really disappointed in is Jacksonville. Jacksonville just sucks. They just suck. They're 0-4. They're just weak. They're a mentally weak team, right? And there's infighting going on everywhere. Trevor Lawrence looks like a bust. It's crazy. And Doug Peterson has absolutely no idea what he's doing. Just no idea what he's doing whatsoever. And, when he came out and said, like, the coaches are going to do so much. Like, what? Yeah. The players are playing the game. The coaches are going to do so much. You threw your entire team under the bus, dude. You're 4 games in. You threw your whole team under the bus in front of the media at your press conference. Yep. That's insane. And so man, that team is terrible. And I was so high on Travis Etienne this year. I have him in like all my fantasy leagues, and he just sucks. And it's so difficult. It's so difficult, man. And I think so much of it, you're right. So much of it is just mental. It's just a mental thing on them.
Me saying I had him too in fantasy.
Oh, that was you. Yeah, same deal.
Both. It's both.
Yep.
Mine good. So I have a couple teams in a good way. One's Washington, just because like I thought Washington was going to be. None of their signings were inspiring to me, but it's proof that look, I don't think he's a good head coach, but I think Cliff Kingsbury is a hell of an offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely.
Like we were saying earlier, I'm happy for the fans in DC that they have a guy they can rally behind. They have a guy where they're like, look, he's our guy. The other one, it's not so much of a surprise, but it's more they've met my expectations, is Tampa. I feel like they were a massively slept on team this whole offseason. Look, the fact that they got killed by the Broncos, but they rebounded by killing Philadelphia says a lot about what the identity of that football team is. And that's I don't know if I want to say disappointment or not, but Philadelphia is a team where 2-2 right now is potentially going to get you fired come January.
It's true. That's true.
Team with winning aspirations. If you keep on doing habits like that, or having like, look how, okay, you beat the Packers, but then you lose that bad game. You played terribly, and you basically cost yourselves the game against Atlanta. And then, okay, you scrape by New Orleans, but then you get blown out by the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Whether or not, those are just it's those games that make me question, is Nick Sirianni the guy?
Right.
It's the thing where their defense is not
Disaster.
it's a disaster. Offensively, they're fine, but you can't look at me and say that's a team that can win the Super Bowl. And the other one, if I had to pick, for a surprise in a good way too, I'm also going to go with Buffalo because I feel like I know they just got killed 2 days ago, like literally 48 hours ago. But I think but I say this with that. You know how the Patriots would do it back in the day where they would like have a bunch of games and they just put up a clunker, usually in Miami?
Yeah.
That's what I think that was. You know what? That was a schedule loss for the Buffalo Bills. Their defense is decimated terribly by injury. Losing Von Miller today to which I'm sorry, but I don't understand why domestic abuse warrants the same suspension as what Tom Brady allegedly did. You know, it's the NFL's got to get certain disciplines right. Where I completely forgot about that whole case about him and his pregnant girlfriend. But
it's bad, real bad.
If look, Buffalo's without Matt Milano, if they're still have Terrell Bernard out, and if Von Miller's out, they got the Jets coming up. They have the Texans on Sunday. They've got. I'm gonna pull up their schedule just because I'm genuinely curious by it, just to see who are they playing. But if I had to pick spoiler alert for coming up for next episode, but I do have them beating Houston on Sunday. I think they kind of get not get right, but they kind of rebound to where it's like they show why they're in the upper echelon, and then we kind of see why Houston's not this team. But they play Texans, Jets, Titans, Seahawks. They should go 3-1 worst case scenario.
You think
they should be 6-2 going into November, which their stretch from like a Thanksgiving onward is Kansas City, San Francisco, Rams, Lions. That's a 4-game stretch that can really define your season right there.
I agree.
But no, Buffalo's the kind of team where if they can't do anything defensively and if offensively can't get anything go, that's what happened Sunday night. But then there's games like last Monday where it's like, oh, hey, this team can do something. But I say Buffalo just for fun, but because you said Minnesota and I didn't want to go on and say someone else. I go Tampa just because I feel like everyone is ready just to hand Atlanta the NFC South. Meanwhile, Tampa's just, hey, we've won the division the last 3 years in a row.
Yep, and they're still good. They're still good, which is crazy. So, yeah, that's I think those are good ones too. I mean, lots of teams out there that are better, I think, than they get credit for.
Yeah.
And the other way around too. I think Bill Belichick is going to be coaching a team most likely in the NFC East next year, whether it's the Giants or the Cowboys or the Eagles. I think that very realistically, you could see all of those coaches fired. Mike McCarthy, I guess, technically wouldn't be fired because his contract's running up, but I think you could see all those guys go. And, maybe Belichick ends up in Dallas, maybe he ends up in Philly, maybe he ends up, in New York. I would think if I'm Bill Belichick, I want to go somewhere where I can win. I have the best chance to win. He's 18 games away.
Philly.
Or 14. Is he 14 games away? I think he's 14 games away. I think Philly gives him the best chance to win. I think Philly's the spot. Makes the most sense. Sirianni, people are just sick of Sirianni. He's got to get the hell out of there. And I think that makes a ton of sense for him. Nostalgic wise, he might want to go back to the Giants, but I don't know if that's the right move for him. I don't know if he would want to go back there with Daniel Jones there. Although Daniel Jones has looked okay the last few games. But Philly's the one that kind of makes the most sense to me. But we'll see what happens. But I'd be surprised if he wasn't coaching next year.
He's 16 back of Hallis, and he's 26 from tying Shula. So it'd be 27 wins he would need. So it's 9 wins in 3 years.
No, 26.
So
he's not that far away, is he?
So he's at 302.
Yep. Are those regular games though?
This is regular. Oh, regular season, postseason. So postseason, he's probably going to get eclipsed because Andy Reid's at 26 and he's at 31. Let me try to find this. NFL head coaches win all time.
I thought he was
Okay,
closer than 26, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, so yeah, he is okay. So I got the real number right here. Apologies. So right now, most wins all time. Andy Reid's at 288. He passed Hallis, I think, in 2022.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Oh no, I remember when he passed Hallis because I thought he was going to do it at the Bears game because I thought, how poetic would it be if he passed it?
Right. Was that 21?
That was 22. Remember the Bears
That
game,
was
the one,
22. Yeah. The Sunday night game. Yep.
the game that I still say was the downfall of Mac Jones.
I agree.
He's fifth. So the one I was giving you is regular season, but
Got
all
it.
time. He needs 15.
15.
Sure.
Okay. I thought he was 14 back. Yeah.
The one question
So
I
that's
still
2
have.
seasons. It's 2 seasons worth of games.
Yep. And then the one question I still have is, will Andy Reid ever get there? Because Andy Reid's at 288, and which means 12.
What's Belichick at right now?
He needs 45 to get to. He needs 45 to get to Belichick.
I mean, he certainly could. Certainly could do it.
Yeah.
If he wants to stay for another 4 years, he'll get there.
Yeah.
Now, if Bill comes back, 45 games, if Bill comes back for 2 years and wins another 20, let's say, I don't know if he'll win 20, but say he comes back for 2 years and wins 20 more, now he's going to have to stay an extra 2, and he's going to have to stay like 6 years, 5 years. Like, that's a lot of years that for Andy Reid to stick around. But, I mean, if you still have Patrick Mahomes, what the hell? I mean, you could. We'll see. But I could certainly see Reid getting there. We'll see. Never beat Belichick in a playoff game, though.
Yeah.
So, interesting stuff. So imagine if he somehow got there. Imagine if Belichick somehow got there with the Eagles or something like that, and they played the Chiefs again and beat him again. How crazy would that be?
Oh, it'd be hilarious. It'd just be us. It'd be us rooting for Bill, who I still say this. He'll have his day in Foxborough to be honored and recognized.
Yeah.
I think it's just I don't understand the whole Robert Kraft Hall of Fame thing where, look, it just is what it is. If Arthur Blank can put himself in the team's Wall of Honor, I think Kraft can too. Kraft gets.
Well, yeah, but I'm not so worried about New England. It's interesting that he's not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame when other guys are. Jerry Jones, and it just doesn't make sense. How's Jerry Jones in there? What has he done? You know what I mean? Like I don't know.
The book's over there. I'm going to say it again. Read. I know the show was a lot of bad. The book tells more than the show does when you want to learn about Kraft and what he did with Sean McManus at CBS Sports and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. I mean, look at the Google Jeff Saturday, Robert Kraft. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know.
2011.
So, yep.
Before we go, one more quick question. Yeah. Thursday night football. Bucks, Falcons.
Oh, brother. You got to go with the Bucks at this point. The Bucks have been on fire. Then again, last week they weren't good at all. So I guess who knows? But I tend to think Bucks. It's in Atlanta though, isn't it?
It is.
So could maybe swing a little bit Atlanta's way. Atlanta's been good. Atlanta's been pretty good. They hung with the Chiefs, almost beat the Chiefs. Won last weekend. That great comeback against the Eagles. So, I could certainly see them winning. I do think the Bucks pull it out, though.
I do think the Bucks pull it out as well. I just think that, look, the way that Atlanta won, that it was very, down to the wire close. I feel like the next game is kind of like, hey, look, you're going to be scheduled to lose, and you'll see. I think the world's going to this is the game that kind of Tampa can kind of show everyone, hey, stop sleeping on us. You slept on us for too long. Now it's time to wake up.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, you never know.
You know what?
You never know, man.
You know what? Sometimes you got to bitch about your favorite team. Sometimes you got to bitch and just, review them. Month 1 review done. Month 2. Well, we're going to be here every month, folks. So September, October, November, December. Always talking about the Patriots. Why? Because, look, sometimes you just got to let your emotions out and get the best. Let your emotions getting out is good for you sometimes. It's healthy.
That's right.
It's healthy and it's good. But anyway, hopefully we beat Miami and we go from there. But for Pat Lane, I'm Griff. This has been episode 315 of YWC Football Talk. See you guys next time.